Right, I've taken my threads all the way up to the required distance, and now we're just going to prove that threads are okay before we get rid of everything here. I'm pretty confident they will be. I didn't have to adjust this tap on previous pens I've made, so we'll do the same. What I'm going to do is, because I haven't made the other the other cap yet, I'm just going to prove it on the existing original cap. So let's just see how that works. Oh, that's going on there quite nicely. Alright, it won't go too far because the threads in the cap don't go the full depth. One thing, I think I've told you this before, when you cut stainless, it can be as sharp as little miniature razor blades, and the threads are no different. Don't be tempted to put your fingers on there and just wipe all the little bit of swath off. That stuff is pretty sharp. Also, as hard as you can try, and as good as you think you are, your die is always, even if it's microscopically, is going to have little sharp edges on the teeth, no matter how well formed they are. So with the best will in the world, you're not going to get absolutely perfectly shaped teeth. So that means that those little teeth are like little saw blades. So they do have sharp peaks on them too. So first thing we're going to do is just get rid of the main rubbish, and then just to get rid of any of the high sharp peaks, just so that we can handle it, we're just going to make sure that it's there, and simply take a bit of emery cloth and run the machine on it. That's 400 grit, that'll be fine. Right, so here we go. Looks a little bit wobbly. I'm not sure why that is. It's probably just not in the chuck properly. Right, I've taken the sharp edge off of those. There we are. That's quite it's smooth, but the threads are well formed. Okay, let's get that out. There we go. Right, what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be removing the first portion of threads and leave a section of about 10 millimeters so that the cap will hold on there, and you'll see how we get rid of those threads and shape the nib shortly. Back in a minute. Right, so we're back again. As you can see, the thread is all nicely cleaned up, and I've got rid of the tapping, the die holder on here, and I've got a live center in here in its place. Oh, while I've got the live center, I can show you something else. You may remember that when I was discussing this center drill earlier, I was going on about the 60-degree included center and saying that it's to line up with your center on your lathe and not for the drill alignment. This 60-degree here is the same as the 60-degree on your live center. So when you drill a hole in your material, the cone hole that it leaves matches that, and then you have a bigger surface area matching. Some lathes have a completely different angle on your live center, and that could be a problem, especially for pen turners. But anyway, that's what that's for. This is the thread. I think you've probably guessed already how we're going to get rid of this thread here. But what I've done in the meantime is I've made a little nut. If I had a nut with the same thread, I would have used that, but I don't. So I just drilled a hole through an existing round nut and threaded it the same thread as that, the M10 by 0.75. And this is just going to simply screw on all the way down to the bottom of there. If I can get that down quick enough. Let's get that down there quick. Don't be tempted to switch the machine on to do this. You're just going to hurt yourself. Don't ask me how I know that. I think is the phrase. Just take this a second. Almost there. Right, there we go. This little nut here happens to be very similar to the amount of thread that's left on the original pen, so that's why I'm using that one. I could have used anything. I could have used a piece of wood with a piece of with a thread, with a hole drilled and tapped in it, or anything. All I'm doing is putting that there to protect those threads that are underneath it, and that can stay there for quite a while. What I'm going to do now is just going to take that, push it up to the chuck. The only reason for that is that when I'm sanding and filing here, I don't want this to tighten up so much that I can't get it off again. So if I push it up there, it's not going to have a tendency to screw on even further. Okay, well, watch out for that. I've just stabbed myself. That's pretty tight. Right, here we go. Sensor's going to go in there. I'm just going to eyeball that again. There's no need for any things. Alright, let's get that ready. And I think you've guessed it. That's the wrong one. Right, here we go. What we've got here is I've cleaned up a little bit here. I've got everything ready. We're just going to remove these threads here with our I can't remember if this is our parting tool or a facing tool or a turning tool, but we're going to use this one anyway. One thing to note is if you've got a file that has no teeth down one side, they've taken the trouble not to do that actually. It's actually probably a pretty good file. Some files, flat files like this, you'll find it's got cutting edges on all four sides. But the one with no teeth on it is actually quite useful, especially for instances like this, because you want to file something into a corner, but you don't want to remove that edge that you're filing up against, and that's the purpose of having no teeth on that. And I quite like that. I always look out for that if I can. This is a fairly smooth file, but it's not going to take much to remove these threads at all. If you've got a vernier, digital vernier, you might want to get it out. I'm not going to worry about it, but you can if you want, and you can set your vernier to 9.25 millimeters, and then you can think on why we're going to set it to that size. There we go. Let's have a find. Okay, that's pretty close. Okay, there we go. We'll lock that. Okay, we'll just switch it off. Okay, we've set that, and that's going to be our gauge. Once that goes over, we know that we've got all the threads are off. Okay, there's two ways of holding a file. If you're right-handed, you would normally hold it your left hand holding the end of the file and your right hand on here. But of course, that leaves your left arm over a spinning chuck. And it's probably not a good practice. If you can, then just turn it around and do it the other way. And it's only slightly more awkward, but it's a lot safer. Okay, because of this little ring we put on here, it's unlikely that the file is going to catch the jaws of the chuck and have any problem. In fact, it's just as likely whether you have a turning tool or a file. In fact, I think it's probably less likely with this because you've got two hands controlling it, over here, rather than a turning tool with just one. But that's just me. Okay, we're going to spin the machine on. We're going to keep it at the same revs. These threads are not going to last very long. Here we go. There's a flat edge. Some people like to put chalk on their files to stop them getting plugged up. I don't like. I can't touch chalk. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies. That's probably why I don't like school so much. But, I don't know if you can see that, but those threads are pretty much gone. I'll carry on doing this, and you want to do this as light as possible. You don't want to, when you get the threads off, you don't want to make it so deep that the teeth are making groove marks that you're going to have to sand off and polish off later. So just do it lightly, backwards and forwards, until they're all gone. I'll catch up with you once those are all gone. Right, we're back again. I've filed all those threads off of there with our big file. Even though it's fairly smooth, I'm going to take a little bit more off. Look at that. Take the last little bit with a much finer one. This one's a bit clogged up on the other side, but it's still got a little bit of life left on it before I throw it out. And I'm really going lightly with the files, both files. I don't want to, introduce deep scratch marks there. One thing I hate is just standing for hours sanding. So let the teeth do the work. Okay. It looks nice and shiny at the moment, but I can assure you that there's still some fairly deep scratches. We're probably going to have to start with 400 grit wet and dry paper there before we can get that quite nice. And we're going to take that down to 2000 wet and dry before we even look at polish. Okay, now I'm going to start on the nib, but before we go at the nib, I just want to show you the why and how we're going to choose the shape of the nib that we're going to do. Alright, I'll get that out and I'll tell you.